located on Wilson Road, just east of Grand Haven Road. I was looking at moving forward with their last phase of their project. Part of that is they'll need to extend utilities throughout their development, water and sewer. And when they come to the eastern end of their property, they'll be about 125 feet away from an existing water main just east of them. We anticipate that will need to be looped, will be a requirement by the Department of Environmental Quality, which issues permits for water main construction. Additionally, the looping is beneficial in the fact that it will supply bi-directional flow to the development and connect that water so that if it flows, it doesn't become stagnant and skunky, if you will. And anyway, just east of that development is a railroad. So you would have to go under the railroad with the water main to connect it or to loop it. The developer is asking that they would not be required to loop that water main. If it's required, that would be at the city expense. In the past, when developments have precipitated the looping of the water main, we have required them to do that as part of that project. One thing I'm suggesting is that if it is required, that we, the city, cover the permit from the railroad, the additional insurance that they require. Typically, they require a $10 million insurance, liability insurance, and a casing underneath the railroad. Because if the water main would break under the railroad, the casing would still protect the tracks. So there is additional expenses there. But, you know, I still think that because the developer precipitated the need for this water main loop, that would be part of the development, but we take on the portion of actually crossing the railroad. An interesting note, when this site plan was approved back in 2006, a note was written right on the plan that Phase 2 water main to be extended under the railroad tracks and connect to the water main east of the railroad. So, at least back in 2006, that was looked at and knew that that was going to be a requirement. So, I know representatives of the developers are here today. You may want to hear from them as well.
So do you have I guess permit fees and stuff, we don't really, but do you have an educated guess on what the total expense would be to loop it?
To loop it in its entirety, quite honestly, I didn't figure those costs. To loop it, including the railroad, I would think it would be maybe $30,000 to $40,000.
Jerry, with this memo, are you basically saying we split the cost with these guys? Or not?
I'm saying my recommendation is that we cover, work with the railroad, get the permit,
yeah,
cover the insurance, pay for the casing, which would, and then the developer actually put in the water main at their expense.
So our part would that be about half of the total?
In my term, that would level the playing with other developments. That the railroad would, for them, would be a non-issue.
Would that amount to about half of the total of what you're from?
I would almost think that it would probably be more than half.
More than that.
Because boring in a casing under the railroad, permit costs, it's fairly expensive.
Okay.
So, thoughts?
So Jerry, you say, and I know you're just going off the top of your head, but 30 or 40,000, you thinking that's maybe the railroad, what I would call the railroad portion, the insurance and the casing?
I would think the casing would, you know, and I forget what because we did that on Lincoln Street when we went under the railroad with regional water main,
Mm.
albeit that was a much larger main.
Yeah.
I don't recall what that cost was, but I would think the casing alone might be in the range of $20,000.
Yeah, that's what 20 grand would be, what my guess would be too on that. But then you get your insurance and whatever that is,
Exactly.
permits and.
And if we were to do that, we have money in the water fund to pay for that?
Yes.
Is there a benefit beyond this development? I mean, I get the whole thing of looping, we like to loop electric lines too, so.
You know, I guess as a whole, there's a benefit to the system. When I say the system, the city water system. But again, without this development, that benefit, that need probably wouldn't have needed to be there. So it's, you can look at it from two different points of view. Where we are currently, where, and I don't know, we've got, 500, 600, 700 feet of water main extended out from Grand Haven Road that just dead ends. I mean, that's not the best situation. You go another several hundred feet, and that makes that situation even worse, because you've got, that much more main that the water just sits in until it's used. So,
If it's fair,
there's some
I'm
benefits
just asking them
both
to
ways.
pick up what would have normally been in a project to connect. We're picking up sort of the extraordinary under the railroad that a normal developer would not have.
That's my
We're not
suggestion.
giving any preferential treatment to anyone, we're just saying this is what he would have picked up anyway, we're just picking up this extraordinary expense of going underneath it.
Right.
I don't know.
And in this case, it wouldn't benefit another property by, it's not like we're extending water main in front of another property that they're going to
Right.
tie into.
They're willing to pick up their own expense, the normal expense.
I can't say they're willing to do that.
Well,
What size is the?
that's what we're asking them to do.
I believe it's an 8-inch, Councilman.
And if they extend it, because you got in here another 125 feet, so that's 125 feet across not their property to get to the next main to loop it?
The corner of, the eastern corner of the property to the water main,
And-
to the existing water main.
And then whose property does that cut across?
The railroad.
That's all railroad, the entire 125 feet?
I think there's 100-foot railroad property and probably 25 feet to tie in, give or take, granted, to tie into the water main. But the water main that's there already serves the property that is east of the railroad.
Because that would be my thought, if someone else was gonna tie in someday, they should be able to recoup the cost of that, if they were gonna get the benefit of them extending it.
I only have one copy of this, but the blue lines represent where the water mains are currently. The
So it's gonna
railroad,
come over here, and then it's just gotta go right there, that's the extra part?
it would drop down to the south, to the southeast corner.
Down here?
Yeah.
I mean, it seems honestly
I don't know
reasonable.
if anybody else wants to see it.
Well, yeah, we know the developers are here and they've been very patient through this long meeting, so thank you.
We know way more about retirement funding than you want to.
Can I have an opportunity to speak to this? or-
Well, what would it, I guess, normally work sessions we don't, this is just our time to talk, but, I mean, I know you're up at a time crunch too, that's why we walked it onto the agenda today. I mean, if we can go on an estimated split, so it's 40, the city would pay 40, they'd pay 40, or it's total project, it's roughly.
My off-the-cuff guess is the total cost would be about 40.
So 20 and 20?
The city probably more than
40.
20.
City would be more than 20, I would.
20 plus the permits plus the
25
insurance.
to 30.
And then their extra 125 feet would be, say, 15 grand.
And I guess my question, and it's, obviously you're in it, to sell these things, this is to be competitive. I mean, is $15,000, you know, give or take, added into the project cost?
It's significant to us. The first phase of that project was 3 buildings, and my real estate guy sitting next to me, and I don't know if you like me saying this, he's made more money on his commissions than we have on selling the buildings. And it is significant to us. And I would also like to offer that, you know, I sat through your pension, and it's a harsh reality to people who work for the city and for you guys that have to deal with that. But when you go through there, you're always looking at places you can cut your employees. I'm giving you a chance for a revenue stream. Nobody has talked about, let's get more revenue. Our current buildings give, the 3 that we currently have are giving over $45,000 of revenue a year to you guys. Your chart told me your revenue is 49% of property taxes. So we're offering you to double that. It'll be better than that because we want to make bigger ones.
So adding in these 125 feet, the project's completed. How many more buildings will you build?
That's 3 more buildings with 29 units.
29 units. We have 29 units currently on the site. Those have been all sold or leased. We have a waiting list.
So
For the
adding
next
adding
building.
$500 to the cost per unit is gonna
We
convince
actually
somebody not to
could
buy one?
Something to keep that project going. We're just trying to finish it up.
Yeah.
You know, my employer is a painter. One of them has already pulled out and says, we don't make enough to bother with this. The other one's saying, if we don't have to pay that, we'll consider to keep going. It's, you know, he's saying it'll cost what, around $60,000 in total? Is that
No, I'm saying about 40,000.
$40,000 in total? These revenues will give you, on the new buildings, will give you $50,000 to $60,000 a year. You're gonna get an income stream of $50,000, $60,000 a year after you pay for $40,000. I don't get the math, excuse me, I'm a CPA.
Right.
You know, why would you
That's
guys
what
pass
you-
up that revenue
right.
stream to hold our feet to the fire over this?
15 grand.
And that's the assumption that you finish the project.
Yeah, well, we obviously,
Because if we spend
we're gonna
$15,000,
start with another-
$20,000 up front to loop it, but you don't follow through and complete the project, said future revenue doesn't happen.
Well, one building would be, one building at a time. That first building will be 11 units on its own. If your average tax on those is $2,000 a piece, that's $22,000 a year if we go no further. But we're not gonna build a half a building and quit. So,
It's only 25% of the property anyways.
How much of the water main do you have to put in already? How many lineal feet? Just to serve your 3 buildings per the site plan?
Oh, we've got to extend a couple hundred feet internally that we say that we have to do.
well, it's up to the one property, not the property line.
Well, to do all 3, to do all 3 buildings.
Well, we'll have to do it just for one because we're gonna be putting in a long one along the back.
Correct. So that itself, we would probably be extending 150 feet.
And that would serve all 3 buildings or go to your property line?
That would service the next building to the northeast, and then we would have the twin building right across the property. And then the last phase would be the final building that would be east of that, setting along the railroad tracks on the west side of the track. If we did that, we'd have to extend again to finish that last
But the
last phase.
biggest part will be in the first building.
Yes.
To get where you're going, it'd be not very smart of us to pay the water system for one building when we really put it in for 2 or more.
Well, I was just kind of thinking, you know, it's like if you've got your 3 buildings to go to your eastern property line, if it's 500 feet of water main, is it reasonable for us to require an extra 125 feet on top of that to loop it? That just kind of in terms of the math, what's the percentage extra that the city wants to have a loop versus what you're going to do to take it to your eastern property line, which is what every other development would have to do at a minimum to create a loop for the water main system.
And 10 years ago, it was already stated that that would have to happen.
And
I don't think we want to set a precedent on, if I want to hook up, I buy a lot and it costs me $5,000 to hook my home up. I don't think, because I'm gonna pay $3,000 a year in taxes, that you're gonna waive that fee for me.
No, this is how, I was just saying.
I'm just saying that, I don't wanna set, what a normal fee should be, would be paid, whether it's a commercial, whether it's a, residential development. I can't come here to the city and say, again, it's gonna cost me $5,000 to hook this up, but I'm gonna pay you $3,000 a year in taxes, so waive the fee for me. No, I think we're setting a precedent that,
Then those $3,000 taxes, we don't get all that.
of course,
You know,
I know.
that gets spread out now.
And we're not asking to waive that fee,
Right.
we're continuing it in the property. The challenge, I think more so that the owners have, the developer has,
Which I think
is going, why am I spending
Yeah.
the monies to go 125 feet beyond our property line?
And I think we all agree with you.
That's the challenge. Internally, we're
Yeah.
completely comfortable paying our tap fees, paying our hookup fees, paying our water and sewer, and extending that through our development. There's no issue with any of that. The issue is, once that water line leaves our property, goes onto somebody else's property, and that happens to be unfortunately under a railroad track, and then additionally 25 or 35 more feet onto somebody else's property, the ownership is saying, why would we have to front that? That's really the issue.
That's
Right.
understandable.
That's understandable. But then the city's perspective is, if not for said development, we wouldn't have to do it at all.
But you're also giving up a lot of taxes over the next 30 years.
Yeah, 29% of that is what we get, what we pay, we
Well,
get 29%.
that's a lot of money over the
Well, I
next
know,
30 years.
it's not 100%, people always think it's 100%, but it's 29% of each dollar you.
Hey, Jerry, how quickly can we get some hard numbers?
I got one right here. 10,000 to install 125 feet of 8-inch water main. So just the, the pipe and the excavation, none of the jack and bore, the casing, or the rest of it. So it's an extra 10 grand.
So, is there consensus, what's the council think? When's the last time we've had a similar project? Applewood Lane is what I remember, that's mostly residential, so we didn't, where we looped something.
It's a boring, it's awesome.
I jotted down a couple private developments that we required to loop over the years that just came to my mind. When Myers rebuilt, they had to loop the water main to the north up to, I forget if it was Fairfield or Sheffield. The Comerica Bank site, after it was demolished and they're redoing that, they had a loop between Norton and Henry. Couple residential developments, Silverton and Evergreen, when they extended that, Berryfield, Crossings, Paramount, we've got a loop over there, so, I mean, it's not uncommon.
My personal opinion is I think the portion going under the
Railroad.
railroad and stuff.
We pick up.
Yeah,
I agree.
that's
I
extenuating.
agree.
And especially since the site plan approval had that in their provision, that the developer really had to do all of it. So the city stepping in and saying, we're going to do the railroad portion, I think is the
So-
above.
So you're saying we're gonna do the railroad portion, meaning the casing, the permits and insurance, and the cost of that 125?
No, and they would pick up the extra cost of 125 feet to connect it.
Okay, so that's the 10,000.
Because that was in the original site plan approval for
So
phase
just a
2.
quick clarification, the original developer unfortunately went bankrupt on this project. It sat idle for quite a number of years, unfinished. That's when I had spoke with the current
We
owners and
revived that,
developers.
we had no idea that this
Yeah,
original
we
site
did, yeah.
plan included that.
Yeah, so we understand it was there, but that wasn't these guys.
Can I just say, is this any different than a company coming for a tax abatement on an extension of their building or whatnot, promising more jobs or promising more anything else?
Yeah, because there's a specific statement that covers that. This is a discretionary issue on our part.
Well, they're both discretionary, aren't they? We can choose to do it yes or
Well-
no on either.
No, correct. I think my thought is we have already, the numerous projects where we've required this over the years, and I think if we now change that, if we don't follow the precedent we've already, how do we go back to Meyer and Comerica and all those who said, well, just in the last few years, you made me pay for this, why now someone isn't doing that? And then what do we do when it's the next project? I mean, are we setting the precedent today that all future similar looping projects going forward will never require the developer to pay a portion of that, and will the city will always cover that 100%? You know, or the next project that comes when they said, well, the people with this, that did this development, you didn't require them to pay, why now are you changing it again?
I don't have a problem with that, different councils can do anything they want. And I don't like requiring, like, if we told Myers, you have to run this another 1,000 feet because we want that. They're like, well, I don't own any of that, what do I do that for? I would have a big problem with that.
Right.
But this is, with the railroad and the site plan and everything else, just seems much more reasonable than most looping requests. Because I'm not a big fan in general of that.
Yeah, and let me just clarify, it's the DEQ, when a permit is requested, that is actually the DEQ that we require, not the city.
Right. So we
Frankly,
still
we don't even know if it's
We don't
going
even
to be
know.
required.
Well, in fact, I was gonna say that.
We don't know
that for
100%
sure.
whether
Right.
it will be.
Right.
We won't know that until a permit is applied for.
Mhm.
It may not be required, we don't know.
Right.
We suspect it would, by the time they get to the east end of the property.
Okay. Agreed.
So,
Yep.
we agree. I
We
mean,
agree
it's
on
the
picking
same.
up the portion, just what you said, pick up the portion, that
Mhm.
the extraordinary portion, or
Yeah.
the normal.
I think that's
And what is
fair.
that, anything
That's
off their
fair.
property? Is that what we're saying?
No, just a normal cost of hooking up, would have been any other development.
The additional
Well,
cost for going under the
Under the
railroad.
railroad, okay.
Yeah,
Is what
we're
we
gonna
will
call
pick
that.
up.
Yeah.
We're asking them to pick up the cost of extending the main.
And we'll have to do this by
Right.
resolution in the council, because we
Yeah.
can't take this action tonight. All right? All right, that's the end of our agenda. Anything for the good of the order? No? Peter, you came, you want to, just observing?
Just interested.
Yes, happy Thanksgiving, that happens on Thursday.
Yeah, you do.
You know, so-
No meeting next week.